On this week's show, as some automakers take the steel versus aluminum struggle public, there's no doubt which product our guest prefers, and he'll tell us why. Coming up next on Autoline This Week. And now, here's your host, John McElroy.
I want to thank you for joining us on Autoline This Week. Today we're going to be talking about lightweighting and especially using aluminum to make cars lighter for better fuel economy and lower emissions. And that's because we've got our special guest today, Marco Palmieri, the president of Novelis North America, one of the big players from a supplier standpoint in this field. Marco, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Also joining us today are Alisa Priddle from Motor Trend magazine and Richard Truett from Automotive News. Great to have the both of you here as well.
Great to be here.
Marco, I got to believe that this is one of the best times for any aluminum company. The automotive industry is under enormous pressure all around the world to improve fuel economy and reduce emissions. And making vehicles lighter is one of the key ways to do that. And of course, aluminum is a lightweight material. Is that true? Do you see this as maybe sort of the golden age for an aluminum supplier company?
Absolutely. It's a major transformation for the industry. I compare that to what happened maybe 30 years ago in North America when we changed from steel cans to aluminum cans. That was a major change in the industry on those days. And today, with the change in the automotive industry, somewhat similar to what happened on those days. We are seeing every year more companies get involved in lightweighting their cars. Almost every automaker in the world is working programs to reduce the weight of their cars. And aluminum is a great material to help them to achieve that goal.
Do you see that same kind of conversion? And you mentioned cans, and that's a good point. I'd forgotten about that cans used to be made out of steel. Do you think that we'll look back at some point and say, oh yeah, I remember when cars were made out of steel?
I don't think we'll get to that point. I do see a world in where the cars and the vehicles will be multi-material cars, mixed material cars. I think there is space for everyone. Aluminum, steel, high-strength steel, plastics, composites. But for sure, aluminum will have a higher share than what we have today, you know, and is probably still losing share. But I don't see the day that is just going to be aluminum or any other material.
Well, the Ducker report, they've always forecast that about 18% of vehicle bodies will be aluminum by 2025. Obviously, a greater percentage of other parts, but the full body. Do you think, are we on track for that, or do you think those numbers could change?
If you go back 2 years ago, the Ducker forecast was that by 2025, the weight of aluminum in cars, in average, would be 540 pounds per vehicle. The latest study that they released, which was 2014, that number came down to 500. It's a small decrease in the aluminum penetration. But it's still a big increase from today where we are below 400 pounds per car, which means that the penetration of aluminum in cars is happening at a slightly lower pace than was anticipated 2 or 3 years ago, but it's still happening big time.
Do you think it's because everyone thought when Ford switched their F-150 over that a lot more automakers would follow suit very quickly, and we're really not seeing that? Instead, we're seeing more mixed material movement.
I think that played a major role in the forecast for Ducker in 2013, because when Ford made the decision, announced the decision to go all aluminum with the F-150, the expectation was that everybody else would follow. Mm-hmm. But at that time, if you remember, there was a lot of skepticism about Ford's decision. A lot of people did not believe that they would be successful. And now, after 3 years after that, it's a huge success. Ford is selling trucks like, never before. They just announced the best quarter ever in the first quarter of this year. And this is a lot due to the F-150. But the other automakers did not follow in the way that people thought. But what we see more and more is really a trend towards mixed materials. That's a really big trend we can see now.
Mm-hmm. Marco, is today's low fuel prices making some automakers sit on the fence about committing to aluminum? I mean, if the price of gas is going to be cheap, do they still need to lightweight as quickly as they thought
That's
they
a
might?
very good question, and I think that in my view, the fundamental driver for lightweighting the vehicles is not really the gas price, are the emissions. Mm-hmm. And the emissions don't change with the gas price. Of course, that with low gas prices, people go for bigger cars and they have less concern with how much money they spend with the fuel. But the environmental requirements of the world will continue to put pressure on the OEMs to reduce the fuel consumption, regardless of the price of the fuel. Of course, that will play a role perhaps in the time that you take to make the conversions, but that will still happen.
Mm-hmm. Marco, it's interesting what you're saying about mixed materials being used. Ford has gone all the way with the body of the F-150 pickup and went all aluminum. Do you think they might back off from that in the future to lower cost, maybe use more ultra high strength steel instead, or do you think they're fully committed to aluminum?
So far, they are fully committed to aluminum. The program is going extremely well. The F-150 is a huge success in the market. We just hear good things about the F-150 in terms of price. The price has not gone up as people were expecting. A lot of talking about maintenance costs, and all we hear is that there is not much difference in reality.
But what Ford's competitors tell me is by going all aluminum, they probably have about $1,000 cost disadvantage versus, say, like at Chevrolet or at Ram that use primarily steel. So with trucks, of course, there's big profit margins. They can afford to eat some of that. But if that's right, a $1,000 cost disadvantage, that's a lot of money.
I agree with you, but if you look the way Ford did this program and with the closed loop recycling, the advantage they get by recycling aluminum, I don't think the difference is that high. I'm not a Ford guy. I cannot speak on behalf of Ford. But if you see the entry price for the F-150, it's not that higher than the prior year model, which means that Ford is still making a lot of money.
Well, you have to
on
price
top of that.
to be competitive.
Yes.
You know, even if your costs go up, you have to price to the market.
But if you look at the margins that Ford reached in North America in the first quarter, it's very healthy margins, which means that they are making money out of these cars. And we all know that a lot of the profits that Ford makes comes out of the F-150 and the Super Duty.
Right.
You know?
So how involved are you as they're developing these vehicle programs? You know, how much are you involved in helping design the vehicle, working on the adhesives, the different joining mechanisms?
We don't work in designing any vehicles. What we are part of the, let's say, the material solution for the vehicle. We try to develop our material that suits our customers' specifications, which varies from customer to customer, depending on the joint technology and other factors. But we like and we normally are involved from the beginning of the program, because then we can do a much better job, because we can always change a bit our alloy or change a bit the heat treatment we do with the aluminum to make it more compatible with our customer process and to get a better product.
And have you changed it between the F-150 and then what they need for the Super Duty? Have you had to change the material very much?
There are differences for some parts. Some parts are common, but other parts, the requirements are different. Then you need to do some small changes in the material, yes.
And then as you go forward into SUVs, you have to keep changing it a little bit? Or?
It all depends on, if it's all aluminum is one thing, it's a mixed material is a different story. If you look at the CT6 for GM that was just launched, that's a great example of a mixed material vehicle. It's 62% aluminum, very high penetration of aluminum. It's not the same spec aluminum as the F-150. There are differences. Of course, I'm not going to give details here, but it's not the same aluminum, you know. And this is a very nice example of the future, in my view, where you have really mixed materials playing the role. And the CT6 is 220 pounds lighter than an equivalent sedan, which is a lot of weight savings. and is being made in the US, is being made in China. This is the first high penetration aluminum automobile in China.
Are you supplying to China too?
Oh yes, we have a facility in China, a cash line in China, which is a facility to make automotive sheet, and we are supplying GM there. Yeah, absolutely. We are partners with GM in there and in here for that program. Yeah, we are one of the leading suppliers for that program.
Not too long ago, I got a chance to go to the plant in Hamtramck and watch the CT6 being made. A lot of aluminum welding there. And we know Ford puts together the F-150 mostly with bonding and riveting. Do you think aluminum welding is the future of joining aluminum panels in cars, or do you think it's going to continue to be riveting and bonding?
That's a very good question, and I'm not sure if I'm the most qualified person to answer that question.
What's your gut feel?
I think both technologies are very good. Both have their space. You also have laser welding.
Yep.
That plays a role in that. Again, different OEMs have different technologies. They have different competencies, and they try to leverage their competencies, which is normal. I don't think there is better or worse. They are just different technologies for different applications.
Richard, doesn't GM believe that it's got an advantage, that it has a new aluminum welding process, and that's probably why you're seeing that?
Yeah, actually, the way GM can set up their aluminum manufacturing is they can use their existing manufacturing footprint. In other words, they can take the robots they have there and just slightly modify them, and they can weld aluminum. And they also have a small part of the CT6 where steel and aluminum are welded together. It's a little bracket in the hood. That's an industry first. So if you look at what Ford did, they spent almost $1 billion to tear up 2 plants to do this riveting and bonding, and GM is going to do it a little differently. They're going to keep their manufacturing footprint the way it is and save a lot of money that way.
I think adhesives is the other thing too that
Adhesives.
is going to make a difference in the mixed
between
materials.
what Ford did and what GM is doing is that in the Ford's case, it's a now aluminum vehicle.
Right.
They had to change everything.
Yep.
When you go for mixed material, then that's why my view, the future is mixed material, because it's cheaper to convert,
Yep.
And probably cheaper to operate the line.
And that's if you can hit your weight targets.
You
Because,
can through,
but so far, the fuel economy and the CO2 emission requirements for pickup trucks have been relatively easy. After 2017, it really starts to get tough.
Absolutely.
And so what Ford has told me is, just wait. General Motors and FCA are going to have to go all aluminum with their trucks too. Do you see that as happening, or do you think that they'll be able to meet those weight targets with multi-materials, steel, aluminum, carbon fiber?
Again, it's a very good question. We as you know, we talk to all OEMs. We do know what they have in mind. I have to be very careful with what I share here. I see more a world of multi-material than a world of AIV vehicles.
Yeah. AIV being aluminum-intensive vehicle, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I see more coming in the future.
Yeah.
Through that, you can achieve the mass reduction that you need. Again, you may see some conversion in some models, but not a huge conversion like Ford did with the F-150 and the Super Duty. We talk about cars that sell 700,000 units a year. That's huge, you know. That was a very bold move from Ford, you know, and it's not easy to make that call.
Marco, I wanted to ask you a question that we don't delve into too much, any of us, but when it comes to aftermarket repair parts, the ones that are not made by manufacturers, they're all been steel. But as we see more and more aluminum vehicles, will we see non-factory branded aluminum repair parts like fenders and hoods? And if so, will Novelis be the supplier of the aluminum for that?
We supply some aluminum today for some tier 1 and tier 2 guys, and they do some aftermarket. It's not a big market for us today. Most of what we supply is to the OEMs. But into the future, yes, the answer is yes. I see that happening, and we will be playing our role in that market, yes. Of course, that now is in the case of Ford, they have their shops to repair the F-150, and that require training and, you know, some special equipment. But when with more and more aluminum coming into the vehicles, that is going to get spread all over the country. Then the aftermarket will be a big market for sure.
Okay.
And as the demand for aluminum keeps sort of changing, I mean, there was this huge demand, and I think you something like tripled your capacity, or but then things sort of slowed down a bit, and so you sort of
in terms of
change some of your decisions.
What happens is we have Novelis has a capacity, let's say, worldwide of 3.4 million tons of products. What we normally do is change the amount we sell to the auto market or to the can market or to what we call specialty market. Mm-hmm. What we did in the last few years was to invest in auto finishing lines, right, because of the growth in the aluminum in the automotive sector.
So kind of changing from the beverage market to the auto market.
Especially to the beverage. But we did not increase our whole capacity. We continue to have 3.4 million tons capacity. Mm-hmm. But now we sell more automotive and less other materials. Just to give you a sense for that, in our fiscal year 12, 5% of what we sold was for the auto market, just 5%. FY16 that just finished in March, that number was 15%. And we see that number in the very near future, in 3 years or so, even less, going to 25%.
Will you continue to siphon aluminum from other businesses and put it into automotive, or are you going to have to increase capacity?
Well, we are a very pragmatic company. We don't make investments if we don't have firm commitments from the OEMs. You don't see us doing that. Therefore, the lines that we're building, and like the Cache 3 line that we will inaugurate in Oswego by the end of the month, is basically sold out already, and that's our business model, okay? If we get enough contracts to build a new line, then we will consider it. But we don't build in advance to have the capacity open. We don't do that. Mm-hmm. That's the way we play the market. Okay?
And then how are you handling just that the price of aluminum has kind of taken a nosedive?
The aluminum is sold based on the LME, on the London Metal Exchange, and that we hedge. Everybody hedges aluminum. You can hedge well in advance. There are enough mechanisms to hedge and protect yourself versus the aluminum price. This is well known in the industry, and we can do that.
So aluminum has been displacing steel, but now we see carbon fiber and magnesium getting more and more. I know you mentioned mixed materials, but do carbon fiber and magnesium and other lightweight materials keep you awake at night wondering?
Not yet. It will come, but they are still very expensive. Mm-hmm. Of course, 10 years time, who knows? I'm not awake at night because of this. Not yet.
Not yet. That might be the key rejoinder there. You know, I'm very interested in the company Novelis. My understanding is it came out of the old Alcan.
It was an spin-off from Alcan.
And just so the viewers know, you've probably heard of Alcoa, which stood for Aluminum Company of America.
Yes.
Alcan was Aluminum Canada.
Yeah. And in 2005, a decision was made to spin off the rolling division of Alcan to make it an independent company, and that was Novelis. That was the creation of Novelis. That was 2005. 3 years later, Novelis was bought by the ABG Group, which is an Indian group, Aditya Birla Group. Now we are 100% owned by the Aditya Birla Group.
What is it about India, where you've got ArcelorMittal, the biggest steel company in the world, and you've got you called it
ABG. Aditya Birla Group. Okay. Yeah, they own us 100%.
And what one of the major other materials in the world, but especially aluminum. What is it about India that they're so into the?
Well, again, the ABG is a big conglomerate of businesses. They have all sorts of business. They have textile, they have mobile phones, supermarkets, clothing, aluminum, copper. They are a huge conglomerate, 41 or $45 billion business. And we are one of their businesses. That's the way they play. And the same for the ArcelorMittal. Although Arcelor is more focused on steel, right, which is not the case for the Aditya Birla Group. Okay. They have more a portfolio of businesses. But back to the creation of Novelis, in 2005, that decision was made, and then Novelis was created, which was, again, in my view, a very good move, because we are a very focused company. Our business is flat rolled aluminum, and that has been our business for 11 years now, and recycling aluminum. And we are improving our business model more and more, and learning more about that business model.
With headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia, but with operations around the world.
We have 4 regions. That's the way we manage our business. We have the North American region, we have the South American region, Europe, and Asia. Europe is based in Zurich, Asia is based in Seoul, in Korea, and South America is São Paulo in Brazil.
Now, you'd mentioned the recycling. You're doing a lot of work coming up with new alloys with your recycled aluminum?
Absolutely. In the last 5 years, we increased the recycled content in our products from 33% to 50%.
And that does not degrade the material?
That's the beauty of aluminum, you know. It does not degrade the metal. And today, everything we sell, 50% is made from recycled aluminum.
And I think you worked with Jaguar on the XE to come up with a new
We work with Jaguar.
new
We just launched an alloy that is 75% recycled content. We call Real Car. It's a great product. Jaguar, all their cars are 100% aluminum. That's the way they go about the business. And I don't see any changes in Jaguar. They want to continue with aluminum. We have a closed loop recycling system with Ford. We collect the scrap they generated in their stamping plants. The scrap is segregated by alloy. Then the scrap that they generate today in Dearborn, in 48 hours or 72 hours, it's back to our plant in Oswego, and we make new ingots and new coils for them with the same material.
How does that work?
That's the beauty of aluminum.
How does that work? They buy coils of aluminum, they stamp it out, they take the scrap. Do they sell it to you?
We buy the scrap from them, and then we make new coils and sell it back. It's a beautiful system.
They don't just sell it to them. Ford separates the grades and actually transports it back to them.
Yeah.
They just do everything. They deliver it to them. That's one of the keys to making the F-150 doable.
Mm-hmm. We have 4 or 5 different classes of scrap, and we got them all segregated, because then the scrap goes back to the right alloy. You know, and that is all done without any manual interference. The trucks that brings the coil takes back the scrap. It's a very well designed system that we put together with Ford. Really a fantastic system.
Did you do it with other people, or is it most sophisticated?
We do with Jaguar.
With
we did with Jaguar. We also do with Jaguar, but the sophistication we have with Ford, we don't have with no one else. It's only Ford.
Do you think anyone else will now?
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful system.
Marco, I've heard car designers say they like aluminum, but they feel that they can't, or they don't have as much freedom to create curves and deep shapes and things because it's not as formable as steel. What are you doing to help the designers?
You are getting to a point that this is really technology development.
Yeah.
We do have some programs in that area.
Okay.
We have some alloys that we are working on that are more formable.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say there is one specifically that can solve that issue. We are running some trials as we speak with that alloy, and we are very optimistic that can be the answer to that very concern.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you one other question. Today in the auto industry, saving money is a very big initiative, and we even see Ford and GM building transmissions together. Would you ever work together with Alcoa? Would you ever do any projects with Alcoa?
We don't have any joint development with them at this point in time. No, we don't have any. Okay. We again, not Novelis, but Alcan had some partnerships with Alcoa. Mm-hmm. I worked for Alcan before. Then we had partnerships in many companies. I was in the board of these companies with Alcoa. But technical development, we don't do much together. No.
What about under the Aluminum Association? You know, to Richard's point, the steel industry is really good at doing a lot of things cooperatively. under their organization. You know, here in the U.S., it's the Steel Market Development Institute. I believe I got that right, and it's the American Iron or the International Iron and Steel Institute on a global basis. Do you do joint projects or any sort of collaboration under an industry organization?
The Aluminum Association, I'm part of the board of the association too. We is very active, but more in the lobbying side of things. We don't talk about commercial issues there. We don't talk about joint developments there. We cannot do that under the bylaws of the association. And remember, Alcoa and us, we are big competitors. We compete very hard in the marketplace. And that's why it's somewhat difficult to work together. But in the future, who knows? They are splitting the company now. They are following what we did years ago, which is great to see that Alcoa is doing the same that we did 11 years ago. Somewhat it proves that our business model makes sense. And who knows the future? You know, we may start to have more cooperation.
Well, of course, you're going through probably one of the best business times in the history of the aluminum industry, at least from the automotive industry standpoint. And you know, when things are going great, the pressure is not on to do some sort of collaboration with others. But with that, we're going to have to wrap up this discussion. Marco Palmieri, thanks so much for coming in and sharing what's going on at Novelis and with aluminum in the automotive industry. Very interesting.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
And of course, I got to thank Alisa Priddle and Richard Truett. Thank you guys for helping ask all the questions.
Oh,
but most of all, we have to thank all of you who tuned in.